Hi, this is Christopher Clark, Town Administrator, Town of Harwich, coming to you again for monthly administrators' announcements and different perspectives. I have several topics that I thought I would try to cover today to let the general public know some of the activities that are occurring in the community and kind of give people a status report, if you would, in regards to it. As always, I don't think there's a slow time of year anymore in municipal government. We seem to stay pretty busy throughout the entirety of the year. One of the areas that we've engaged in, there's been a neighborhood effort of activists to look at the West Harwich Schoolhouse and to try to reinvigorate that discussion. If you probably will recall, last year during the budget cycle, I had proposed doing some demolition to various buildings in the community. I wasn't really interested in doing the demolition, but what I wanted to do was to spark a conversation in regards to some of these properties. The Bank Street property was one that came up, and we've had a discussion fairly recently, and the decision has been made by the selectmen that that building will need to be retained by the Harbormaster until such time as the Saquatucket development is a little further along. So I believe the Bank Street Fire Station will stay in a town inventory for the next probably at least 2 to 3 years. The West Harwich Schoolhouse, as part of that discussion on the recommendations for doing some demolition, prompted some activists to get together, and they did present a proposal to the Board of Selectmen to use that as kind of a nautical center. And the board very, very recently has decided that they would like to see some kind of request for interest letters to go out. So administration will be working on putting together some material to see if there are interested parties. I think at a minimum, the effort that was being put forth by some of the activists was done in concert with our Historic Commission. So under that concept for that building, potentially the Historic Commission would have governance over the building, and they would use it as a kind of an information center. They've deemed that the West Harwich along Route 28 as Captain's Row, that there's several seafaring captains way back that had houses along that stretch of roadway. So as tribute to them and tribute to their memory, to have that building be dedicated for that purpose, and perhaps some boat building. If there's an effort that's able to coordinate with the local vocational technical school or other groups in the community to do some boat building and then to have raffles and for those boats to be able to kind of generate money to be able to sustain the building. The town did do a study back in 2008 that indicated that the work that needs to be done is about $1.1 million, so not a small undertaking. I think the group's efforts will be spearheaded by an application to community preservation to see if the building can be preserved, some elements of it preserved over the next, most likely, several years. The next one, also, I think last time we had a discussion about the Albro House. The Albro House is a slow work in process. The Albro House last night, the discussion focused on the painting has been done, but as you look at the building, there are 2 components that have not been painted. The first is a small addition onto the side closest to Town Hall, and that addition has been deemed to be not historically significant and not really part of the original structure. So the board did vote to remove that addition, and as well as the small garage structure immediately behind the property. So you'll see some limited demolition being done on those 2 areas. Obviously, with the house being painted, it is in good shape or better shape now than it has been with the paint. So we are looking to kind of finish that project by removing some of the ancillary pieces. In terms of who determines ancillary pieces, not necessarily me. Actually, it went to the Historic Commission to make a determination as to what was part of the original historic structure and what were add-ons that could be removed or not part of the historic integrity of the building. So Albro House will be getting additional changes done to it as we move forward. Also, I know it's probably early to start thinking about town meeting, but the selectmen have been looking and working with the Charter Review Committee to see what elements do we have in the charter that could be updated and perhaps need to be updated. So some areas that they were looking at is over the last several months there's been some discussion about the appointment language. The appointment language in the charter for the administrator and the selectmen run a little contrary to other statutes that have been accepted. It's commonly called the strong chief statute for the fire chief. That gives the fire chief strong appointment powers, not subject to review by the selectmen. So the selectmen have indicated, and certainly the town adopted that statute, that they would like to have those two statutes not conflict. So that's an area that they would look at. Also, in review of the charter, it's been determined that there was a element of the charter that calls for 3-year appointments to various boards and committees. And a 3-year appointment is fairly typical for appointments. But what also happens over time is if you have someone depart through a resignation and they leave the appointment and there's only 2 years left, you don't have the option of doing less than 3 years. So one of the things that will be looked at is to have the ability to do appointments of 1, 2, or 3 years in order to maintain staggering on a board. Having all 5 members of the board leave at the same time just doesn't make good public policy sense. So one of the things I think that the community will see is a request to have some of the terms be less than 3 years or up to 3 years. Also, we are looking at specifically Monomoy and the creation of Monomoy regional school system. There was some language in that the charter, we want to make sure the charter is up to date, that we no longer have a school that's in-house as part of the town of Harwich specifically, but instead part of its own regional school system. So Monomoy Regional School System, we want to make sure that the references to the charter reflect the reality on the ground, that the Monomoy Regional School System is now a separate entity, still a very important entity, obviously, to the town of Harwich as they educate. The majority of the students in that school are from Harwich. A couple other items, hopefully more housekeeping than anything else. We have in the charter a reference to highway and maintenance divisions. Commonly, highways and maintenance divisions is kind of an older term of art. They are usually typical divisions within a DPW, but I think it makes more sense to approach and have a Department of Public Works. So there has been a suggestion made to convert the highway and maintenance departments into an overall Department of Public Works. I think this would be more administrative. Very often we call the highway and maintenance DPW anyway, so I think that makes sense to do that. Also, the Harbormaster, there is no listing for the Harbormaster within the town charter. Obviously, Harbormaster is a public safety position, very important. So we are going to take a look at where we can incorporate the Harbormaster into the town charter, perhaps under the appointment section, so that position has full recognition in the charter. One of the bigger issues that we have to confront as well is the wastewater governance. Some discussions have emerged that do you have wastewater governance, how to implement the CWMP, whether that stays within the Board of Selectmen or whether that's done by the Water Commission. So that is a discussion in process, and perhaps at a later date we'll have additional updates on that topic. And then lastly, I just wanted to cover, we have had a vacancy in the Assistant Town Administrator position. The position has been in question since the end of February, and the position was officially vacated as of July 30th. So we have conducted a search, and we are very, very close, probably just a day or so away from making an announcement for who hopefully the next Assistant Town Administrator will be. We did receive 94 applications. I think part of the reason for the increase in the applications is because we did do a salary survey that has put the salary more competitive with our neighboring towns on the Cape. So hopefully the next time I'll be able to report a new member to the management team in the form of the new Assistant Town Administrator. As always, thank you for your time and attention. I hope these are informative. And again, always, if you have any questions that you'd like to have answered, I really see myself as the people's servant. I'm more than happy to try to address any specific issue. Please contact the cable studio, or you're more than welcome to contact the office here for ideas for these topics. Thank you for your time and attention.